Previously, we've seen the if, then, else, end if structure, and that typically is going to consist of at least 5 lines, if not more. There is a simpler approach if you want to assign a value to a container or to a variable or set a property, and that's called a ternary conditional. These are available in most languages. A lot of languages have a ternary operator, which is the question mark. So for example, in C#, we write a ternary expression as the Boolean expression, a question mark, then the true value that would be assigned, a colon, and the false value. But in Visual Basic, we use a if method basically to perform the operation of the ternary conditional. Again, this is an assignment method. We're going to assign a value based on the condition being true or false, so 2 possibilities assigned to a container. And that container could be a variable or it could even be a property. So let's look at an example here. So I have dim is even as Boolean, so is even as a variable equals, and if, I'm going to have a number called mynum doing the mod operation of 2, and if it equals 0, then we're going to set is even to true. Otherwise, we'll set it to false. The next example here is I have a variable called tax rate, which would be a double value that previously declared. And here we have if, and the city is any town, the tax rate then is going to be 0.067. Otherwise, it'll be 0.078. The next one is where I'm setting the property value of back color to my label. So if num correct is a variable, maybe it's a little applicational quiz. So if num correct is greater than 10, we're going to set the color of the LBL output to green. Otherwise, we'll set it to red. We're seeing how this mimics the if, then, else, end if, but we can also use a ternary to mimic just a standard if, then. Here I have ABC equals, and if XYZ equals triple, I'm going to have it do an expression of ABC times 3, so I can actually do some math inside of this. And that's if it's going to be true. If it's false, though, it's going to retain the value of ABC. Nothing changes for ABC. So it really is the same as doing an if, then, end if. Here's another example of setting an image property for a picture box, pick illustration. So if age is less than 18, I'm going to set that picture box to a resource value called minor. Otherwise, I'm going to set it to resource value called adult. Ternaries for me reduce the amount of code I have to enter. It makes it a little more readable. But again, this only works if you're assigning a value to something in your conditional expressions. That's not always the case. Let's go back and take a look at that even or odd application that we wrote with the if, then, else. You'll remember this application where the user can enter an integer and we click evaluate and it tells us if the integer is even or odd. And we coded the evaluate button handling its click event with an if, then, else, if structure. I want to rewrite that to use a ternary expression. I'm going to select my conditional structure, go to the edit menu, go to advanced, and I'm going to choose to comment the selection. I'll set LBL output dot text equal to, and here we'll use the if ternary method. The Boolean expression is the same as I used earlier, so I'll copy and paste that. And then the value being assigned to LBL output, if it does not equal 0 and the number is odd, I want to put in mynum is odd. Otherwise, the false value will say that it's even. So I've replaced these 5 lines with this one line. Now some people argue that's less readable than the if, else, end if, but once you're used to this if method, I think you'll find it just as readable. I still like the fact that there's less typing and my code is reduced in length. Let's try to make sure this works. Here's my application running. If I put in, say, 121, I'm told that's odd. If I put in as 140, I'm told that that's even. So those are correct. The ternary condition is working just as well as the if, else, end if conditional structure. We can use multiple ternaries in a sequential fashion to simulate an if, then, else conditional structure. Let's take a look at another example. You remember the example in the previous lesson where we were finding whether water was a solid, liquid, or gas based on an inputted temperature, and we coded the text changed event for the text box. we used in that code an if, then, else, if, else structure to provide 3 different forks, one for ice, one for steam, and one for water. But a ternary condition only gives us 2 forks. However, we can use 2 ternary conditions to mimic the if, then, else, if, else. I'm going to comment out this code. So edit menu, advanced, comment selection. And then replace this with 2 ternary conditionals. And here are my 2 lines. Pick illustration.image equals if temp is less than or equal to 32, I'm going to set the image to the ice image that's in my resources folder. Otherwise, I'll set it to the water image in my resources folder. Then I'm going to use the if method ternary conditional again. So if temp this time is greater than or equal to 212, I'm going to set the image to the steam image in my resources. Otherwise, I'm going to keep it the same. It doesn't matter if it's ice or water from the previous one, whatever it is. If it's not greater than 212 or equal to 212, I'm going to keep it as pick illustration.image. So I'm using the current value as the false value. Let's watch this run. So if I set this to 20, I get ice. 220, I'm getting steam. And 120, getting water. So again, this works when we're assigning values to a property or to a variable. And in this case, I had to use 2 ternary conditions to match the if, then, else, if, else structure. If we were to have multiple else ifs, we would need more ternary conditional statements. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the Programming Practicum playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos I create, you can click my picture in the top right to subscribe to the channel.